wants facts. Well, here's a fact. He would have me commit to following Section 12.1 of the National Security and Intelligence Committee Act, which would not only strip away my ability to speak about this matter, but would ban me from doing it right here on the floor of the House of Commons. That is a fact. The real question is, what is he so determined to hide? We know Beijing helped him in 2 elections. We know Beijing gave donations to his Trudeau Foundation. Is that why he's so determined to silence his critics and keep these secrets?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, I know it's difficult for some people to remember, but the honourable member was at one point a Minister of the Crown and thereby subject to oaths of secrecy and cabinet confidences, and was able to handle secrets just fine at that point, including when he was Minister for Elections. At the same time, Mr. Speaker, he is choosing now to turn his back on the facts because the facts would be inconvenient to the political argument he's trying to make right now. If that member was serious about this serious issue, he would allow the intelligence agencies to give him the necessary brief.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Again, blackface demonstrates why he is the master of the non-answer. It's kind of like, Mr. Prime Minister, what car do you drive? And he answers, my drapes are green. This is so tired. You can't get a straight answer out of this man, Sheila.
Let's try to walk ourselves into the point that he's trying to make. I think he was trying to make a point there. I'm not sure. But he's saying that Pierre Pollievre, won't allow intelligence agencies to give Pierre Pollievre classified information. Now, Pierre Pollievre is saying, I don't want this to be classified. So if they're going to give me information, it better not be classified because the public has a right to know. So Justin Trudeau is saying, why won't he just let us give him this information? But the greater point is, and I think Justin Trudeau inadvertently made it because he's stupid, is, yeah, we want you to give us the information, not just Pollievre, the rest of us. And he's saying, if you were taking this issue seriously, you would want the information. Yes, exactly. That's why we want an inquiry. That's why we want, yes, exactly. That's why we want an inquiry. And that is the point that he just inadvertently made, is that, yes, information is important and it should be in the hands of the people who need it so that they can make decisions about Justin Trudeau's behavior.
Yeah, you don't mind, do you, blackface? I mean, even though your best friend, David Johnson, suggested or advised otherwise, we still kind of want this inquiry. And again, I have to say, Sheila, Jagmeet Singh, he has to man up at some point. You can't be going on social media, criticizing these liberals, cutting up blackface, and then forever and ever propping him up in the House. I think this would be a political win, actually, for Jagmeet Singh, Sheila, if he said, can't go along with this deal anymore. Sorry, this is too important, especially since it was just revealed 2 days ago that an NDP MP was targeted by these people practicing Chinese interference. What is it going to take for this coward to become a man and pull the plug on this government?
Do you know what, Efron and Olivia? This is a great time to go to that clip that I asked you guys to dig up, or Efron, I asked you to dig up earlier. David hasn't seen it. It's not on the list. But the NDP really know who the real bad guys are. And it's not CCP influencers. It's not even the Liberals. Let's show who the NDP think the real bad guys are. This is who they think should be the target of foreign interference investigations.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so again, I just want to affirm that, just to correct my colleague, that the Alberta NDP won every seat in Edmonton and the majority of seats in Calgary. Now, Madam Speaker, we know the Conservatives, they're really more interested in flinging mud than looking for a solution. This is a matter of foreign interference, not just Chinese interference, Madam Speaker. Russia and Iran are also carrying out major covert operations. We only have to look at the United States in 2016 for evidence or to reports of Russian financing of the Freedom Convoy in Ottawa in 2022, which we know the Conservatives supported. But by singling out the Chinese, this is having a huge impact on the diaspora here in Canada. Do the Conservatives agree with Canadians that we should be investigating all foreign interference in elections? And also, do they agree that we need to deal with foreign interference before we go into another election, Madam Speaker, not after?
Okay, this guy's crazy, right? Like, he's crazy. We just had the Public Order Commission where everybody who knows something testified and said, yeah, there are no Russian operatives, no Kremlin financing in the Freedom Convoy. It's out there. The documents are out there. The testimony's out there. But he's still clinging to this thing that CBC said once and then had to retract as though it were true. And the NDP apparently are mad at the Conservatives about foreign interference, but they're not mad at the Liberals. And they're saying, well, we need to have an investigation before we get to the next election. And they're attacking the Conservatives on that. But the Conservatives are saying, yeah, we definitely do. Could you do us a favor and quit propping up Justin Trudeau so that we can have that investigation? Like, they're so insignificant and they're shooting in the wrong direction. Bunch of idiots.
It's unbelievable. And, just this morning on News Talk 1010, the host had on one of the journalists as part of a Toronto Star investigation unit. Sheila, it's done a 3-part series on the biggest threat Canada's facing right now, and that would be the rise of white nationalism. And what was the first example that Grant LaFleche, by the way, Grant LaFleche, yes, folks, if that name rings a bell, that's the guy who libeled Alicia Herder, the St. Catherine's hairdresser, who found a loophole to exploit to open her salon as basically a movie test site or something like that. I can't remember the exact terminology, but you could do people's hair and makeup if it was for a screen test. And she did that.
Right.
And he libeled her. I believe he falsely reported that she wanted somebody beheaded. It was actually the opposite. Somebody called into her phone number and wanted her beheaded. So a little bit of libel there. I don't know where that lawsuit's going, but that's your Grant LaFleche. White supremacy, white nationalism, that's the biggest threat facing Canada. And the first example he pulls out of his hat is the Freedom Convoy. I mean, and I just want to say this to Premier Cherry Cheesecake. You and your brother had it right 10 years ago when you called Toronto Star journalists a bunch of maggots. How did it go from that to your government, Mr. Ford, giving Torstar Corporation a gambling license worth $500 million a year? Who's pulling your strings? Why are you such a sellout? But you want to talk about hatred online? That's an example, Sheila.
You know what? Let's move ahead because we've got 7 minutes left in the show and we have some chats to read. And I want to get to this clip from Adam Van Coverden. He's a Liberal MP, former Olympian, but you don't have to be smart to be an Olympian. So, and he proves it here. So let's hear. He's talking about harm reduction. So this is post what they call harm reduction, which is giving addicts government-funded poison and a government-funded facility in which to poison themselves. And those poisons are administered by a government worker. And they call that harm reduction. We don't call that harm reduction here in Alberta. We call that palliative care when the government prolongs your death sentence. So anyways, let's listen to him. And then I'm going to pull up some data because he's wrong and he's a liar and he should know better.
We rely on experts for that academic approach, for an evidence-based solution. And since Canada at large has been employing a safe supply and harm reduction approach and an evidence-based approach to solving for the opioid epidemic, there have been tens of thousands of overdose reversals. Lives are being saved. This is not work that's complete. It's ongoing. But the type of fact-free nonsense that's been coming out of the Conservative side on this lately is harmful and it needs to stop. We rely on...
No, yeah, this is Kabordin, the kayak kid. What he's prescribing for those unfortunate people that are dependent on illicit and illegal drugs, Sheila. I think in the kayak world, they call it going up Shites Creek without a paddle. You are dooming them to continued addiction, to deaths in an extreme case. And by the way, this is going to be one of the results of an Olivia Chow mayor system in Toronto. You're just going to see that go off the rails. I like what's happening in Alberta. Back in March, I saw Danielle Smith speak here in Toronto at a business function, and she talked about this fantastic system of getting addicts into dormitory buildings, teaching them how to budget, how to buy groceries. I know that sounds very basic, but if you've been on the streets and you've been high out of your mind for weeks or months, you got to go right back to the beginning. And that is putting people on the right track. They're getting clean and sober, and they're getting off these bloody drugs that the left seems to adore.
Well, that's the thing. He keeps prattling on about evidence. Well, I can show you evidence because Alberta, as you rightly point out, is doing something completely different. We can compare ourselves to British Columbia.
Yep.
Because our approaches are polar opposite. We've got 30 years of data from the downtown east side about what harm reduction actually does to addicts, to the community, to their friends, family, to neighborhoods. Same thing in San Francisco, Los Angeles, all those places where they have this liberal tolerance for the drug, and they cloak it in compassion, but it's absolutely prolonging the misery of the addict and their families, because there are only two ways out of addiction: death or getting clean. That's it. And your death can come fast or slow. The government would like it to be slow and agonizing. Your dealer probably wants it to be fast. But in Alberta, we're doing something different. I think we might be up to 16,000 treatment beds. Because this is a real crisis that is hitting the downtowns of our cities, but also suburban neighborhoods and rural places. And with addiction comes all the other social decay, the crime, the dereliction, all those things. So 16,000 treatment beds. We've removed the fee for treatment. So under the NDP, it was $40 a day. They're charging the most vulnerable people in our society to get life-saving care. So when the NDP won't shut up about the Conservatives are going to make you pay for healthcare, they were charging addicts for treatment. Revolting. But we also have recently passed a law, or Danielle Smith is going to pass a law, that mandates treatment for violent drug offenders. So if you are, the kind of wild-eyed meth addict who's threatening your family, guess what? The police are going to come with a butterfly net and take you off to treatment. You don't get a choice now. And what a difference that will make for the families of the addicts who live in fear. But not only have we taken a different approach, but already we're seeing lives saved, drastic declines in opioid deaths. So this is from Michael. I've got a different article on my screen. It's Michael Schellenberger's, who wrote a book on the failure of drug policy in San Francisco. He looked at what they call the Alberta model and compared it to BC. And he said, all indications are that Alberta is getting it right. From 2021 to 2022, which is when we really took a strong approach on this, overdose deaths in the province dropped by 17%. In the same period, British Columbia saw only a 1.4% reduction. Here's where it gets really good, because this is when we really ramped up our treatment beds and we started changing laws and said there will be, and upping police presence in the downtown. We deployed provincial sheriffs downtown. In January 2023, the latest month for which data is available in Alberta, overdose deaths dropped to 111 from 172 in the same period last year. So that's 61 lives saved year over year. What is that, a 1/3 reduction in overdose deaths? By having police presence in the downtown, ramping up treatment beds, and then now with the threat of going to forced drug treatment, these numbers are going to improve even more. In April this year, BC counted 206 overdose deaths, a 17% increase over April 2022. So BC, since they decriminalized hard drugs, More people are dying, and they call it harm reduction. In Alberta, we said opposite approach, more cops, more treatment. We're going to force you into treatment, and our overdose deaths are going down. These are lives saved. That's 61 families.
You said it all, Sheila. And thank goodness, again, for the results of Monday night in your province. Because what do you want to bet with a Rachel Notley regime? All of that good work would be reversed.
She said it would be. She said it would be. She said that we are going to take a harm reduction approach, which means you have a government employee giving vulnerable people a poison by which they can kill themselves in a safe government facility.
Unbelievable. So the results from an expert are saying this is working. We're going to tear it down and put in something that doesn't work. That sounds like NDP thinking to me, actually, Sheila.
Yes, and it's liberal thinking because they just voted to affirm that it is fine for BC to decriminalize hard drugs because it's compassion, it's harm reduction, and he claims there's evidence. Well, there's evidence all over the place of the opposite, especially if you look up and down the West Coast.
That's a clip from something we call Rebel News Daily. It's our daily live stream hosted by my friend David Menzies, but the show also includes a rotating cast of hosts and special guests, including me. It's a great way for us to talk about the news of the day as the news is happening in an unscripted fashion, and it's an awesome way for you to interact with us as well. We stream every weekday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Mountain, wherever you find Rebel News. See you there.